GNT show is intended for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. These are the voyages of the GNT show. Our continuing mission to explore Star Trek storytelling, to seek out new worlds and interesting characters, to Boliga, where no show has gone before. Live long and prosper, bitches.
Hi, this is Jen Usellis-Mackay with the GNT Show. I am reporting in from Capricon 36, and I am with the artist guest of honor, Eric Wilkerson. For those not familiar with Eric's work, he's a freelance illustrator, concept artist, and teacher working in the entertainment industry for the last 10 years. He has worked with some amazing, quite the resume, Blue Man Group, Weta, Show Creators Inc., Robot Costumes USA, Nickelodeon, Fantasy Flight Games, and apparently this is your first time in Chicago, Eric?
Yes, it is.
Woohoo! That's amazing, because I saw that you've worked with Blue Man Group, and they're based here. Were you working with, who were you working with Blue Man Group?
I was working directly with the owners, with the founders of the company,
Awesome.
Chris Wink, Andrew Stanton, and their crew.
Awesome. What did you build for them?
Well, they were trying to design a new... I was designing costumes for a new show that they were trying to put together.
Okay.
And I don't really know if it's ever going to come out.
Oh,
but
no.
it's like 4 years of my life that I invested in like design. It was like all sci-fi, like really cool stuff.
That's so cool.
And Weta came on board because Weta was contracted to fabricate my designs.
Okay.
So I was working remotely with like guys that were separating their time between designing sci-fi costumes and working on Lord of the Rings.
Oh my gosh.
So when like they were in between, like, just to tell you a little bit about the Weta connection, they were kind of on hold for The Hobbit. This is before The Hobbit came out, because Guillermo del Toro was originally supposed to direct that movie, but there were union troubles in New Zealand, because the people in New Zealand were like, well, we want X amount of dollars if you want to continue filming here. So Warner Brothers said, well, screw you guys, we'll film it in Arizona.
Oh, no.
So then they said, well, hold on a second, we'll wait. But all of that union all that union trouble held back the time that Guillermo had to put into the film. So because he had other films on the pipeline, so he had to bail out. And that's the space of time that Weta had to work with us. Right. And then when Peter Jackson came on board,
that was just balls to the wall crazy.
Yeah.
He had no time to even storyboard that stuff.
But see, Weta had already done tons of pre-production work on Lord of the Rings, so Peter Jackson was basically able to use a good chunk of what was already done and fabricated for the movie. But when Peter Jackson came on, they basically said, "Well, see you guys." To Blue Man Group, they said, "See you guys. We'll come back in a year or so.
Oh, no!
Like if you're still in production."
That's not how theater works.
Right. But they didn't know. They didn't know that it was going to be a trilogy. They figured it was just going to be one-off film,
one movie.
So they said, "We'll come back in a year." But
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's insane. So you were doing some panels this weekend and some lectures. What panels are you participating in?
Well, this afternoon I'm going to do how to create a book cover.
Oh, cool.
And then I'm going to be a part of architecture of. Oh man, I can't remember the. It's something based around alien architecture on Earth. I think that's the name of it.
Oh, cool.
And then tomorrow I'm doing just the art of Eric Wilkerson, just like showing like my eclectic career, going from storyboarding, Nickelodeon stuff, on the way up to what I do currently. So I'd have to check my list. Yeah, like there's a couple other things, but those are the heavy panels that I have to really prepare for.
Right.
not embarrass myself and say anything stupid.
I know that feeling.
Yeah.
I know that feeling. There was a thing in your biography about the Rock in Rio USA and the 9-foot tall robot, and like what was that? Like, I couldn't find any pictures. I was like, what is this?
Yeah, I haven't posted any pictures. I'm going to be showing it tomorrow, actually, as a part of my presentation.
Oh, cool.
All right, so based around I can't really talk about the work that I did for Blue Man,
sure,
but I was able to apply that to the giant robot for Rock in Rio.
Cool.
So if that gives you an idea of what I was doing for Blue Man.
They do like their big props in Blue Man Group.
Exactly. So I was showing work at New York Comic Con, or no, it was Dragon Con. And I had like robot art on my table, and the owner of Robot Costumes USA happened to come by, said, I really like your stuff. And so I showed him some of my portfolio, and he said that he had a project in the pipeline that he would like me to work on. He contacted me a few months later, and we started working on I had to design a robot mascot for this music event in Las Vegas last year. So like Metallica, Gwen Stefani, Bruno Mars, Aerosmith, a ton of these bands were there, and they needed a mascot that would just walk around in the crowd, like blasting Little John, like that Turn Down for What? Like, so the robot had to be designed for a performer to comfortably wear it and walk around in it, and it had to have functional speakers built in, and it had to have a clear visibility for the performer to see, but you could not see his face. So those were my challenges, but having done work for Blue Man, I knew exactly what to give them.
What you needed to do, yeah.
So they ended up fabricating this robot, and I didn't hear back from the company I did it for months. I was like, is it done yet? Is it done yet? Is it done yet? And because the frustrating part about working as a concept artist is you could do something for somebody.
Right.
And it could be years, literally years, before you see the fruits of your labors.
Yeah.
Or never, in some cases. It could get shelved, and then you got paid, and you can name drop, but you can't show anything.
You can't show anything, yeah.
So, and as an illustrator, you want to have that instant, feedback from an audience and be able to say, see what I did?
Right.
But so I was really eager to have that come out, and when it came out, they wouldn't send me pictures of the robot. I had to go on Instagram and scour the internet, like looking for pictures of the event,
and then hope that somebody snapped a picture of your robot.
Right. So then I was on Instagram, and people were getting group shots with the robot. And I said, "Oh my God, it's out! It's out!" I was so excited, and then people started claiming credit for designing it, and I'm thinking, hold on a second. So I have to update my website and put this out there so I can show other production companies, well, I am capable of doing more than just painting and drawing. I can design stuff that is fabricated and functional.
Right.
So,
That's so cool. I was looking at your Instagram, and you mentioned you were getting back into sculpture and stuff like that. Now, is that something you started with originally, or is it?
I've been sculpting what they call maquettes since I was in college. Well, even before that, but I didn't know there was a word for it.
Sure.
Like my earliest memories of making my own toys was when I was 10 or 11 years old. So I had the original Ninja Turtles, the Playmates Ninja Turtles.
Yep.
And they hadn't come out with the Turtle Van or the Ninja Turtle layer.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I'll just make my own. So I had cardboard, I had markers, I had masking tape, and I designed a Ninja Turtle van, like based on the designs from the cartoon.
Awesome.
and I designed the play set for them, like a little sewer, like living room and all that stuff.
That's great.
And I took up most of my mom's dining room with this huge, like 4-foot long turtle layer.
That's so cool.
But when I got to college, my painting teacher said, imagine how much better that alien or that robot or whatever that fantasy thing would look if you knew how the light hit the form.
Right.
Instead of you just making it up and guessing, you can just sculpt something with clay really quickly,
right.
Shine a light on it, see how the shadows fall, see how the colors are, and then you can use that as reference to paint.
Oh, that's cool.
So from there, I just increasingly started doing more and more of that, but I would only go so far with
right.
the sculpture. So most recently, I designed this alien like holding an American flag, and I really wanted to see how far I could push it.
Right.
Not just keep it as a throwaway maquette.
Right.
Like treat it as a real sculpture. Like how far could I go? How well could I do this?
Right.
And I really enjoyed it.
That's so much. Yeah. I saw, like, I was seeing your work in progress on the painting, like as you painted it and stuff like that. I was like, oh, it's so shiny.
Yeah.
So for my Facebook creep, I know you sat on the bridge of the Enterprise.
Yes.
And that's amazing. So you are a Star Trek fan.
Yes.
And the D&T show, their thing is Star Trek. That's kind of how they got their start. Mm-hmm. They interview all kinds of people. So they have they've taken the Lipton questions from like inside the actor's studio.
Sure.
And they've Star Trekked some of them. So to end our podcast, I'm just going to throw out a few of the Lipton questions from the G&T show. So what is your favorite Trek series?
Of all time?
Yeah.
Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Awesome. That kind of like serial, it's like the soap opera of Star Trek.
It is.
But I don't say that in a bad way, but like in the like overarching story. Like,
it's like, I sometimes think of Star Trek Deep Space Nine as Babylon 5 with a budget.
Do you have a favorite episode?
I apologize to Babylon 5 fans, because I'm
Don't
hardcore
apologize.
Babylon 5 fan too, but
Don't apologize. Do you have a favorite episode or like story arc or anything like that?
Yes, I do. Oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it right now. It was the one where Sisko is a science fiction writer in the 1950s.
Nice.
I can't remember the title of it, but the fans know, and they're probably saying it and screaming.
Right.
How could you not know that? I just can't think of it right now.
If you could be any species in the Trek universe other than human, what would you be?
Oh, man.
As Nick always says, and I know that Nick will be listening to this, a Bolian.
Actually, you know what? I think I would. I think I would be a Ferengi. I think I would be a Ferengi.
Interesting. The laws of acquisition.
I would probably quote the laws of acquisition to people all the time. I mean, they're not at war with anybody.
It's true.
They love money. I mean, hey, you can't go wrong. I mean, they're hated by a lot of people. I don't know. Maybe
it's just because they're miserly. They're like the Scrooges of the. In a strange way.
Let me think. I wouldn't want to be a Klingon because I don't know.
It's a lot of makeup. It's a lot of makeup. It's a commitment.
It's just, well, if they were real, it's just like you'd have to be a certain way, otherwise you wouldn't know when a knife is coming for you.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. No, that's true.
Man, that's a hard one. I'll just go with Ferengi for now.
I like it. What's the name of your starship? The USS?
Oh man. I don't have one for my. Oh man, that's a tough one.
I made this goofy Klingon model of I built it. It was like a battle cruiser, but then I painted it pink and purple and bedazzled it, and I dubbed it the IKV Lollipop. And that was my.
I think I can't think of a name for my own ship, but I think if I could have served on any ship, I think that I probably would have had a thrill serving on the Equinox. Are you familiar?
That one
Okay, it's from Star Trek Voyager.
Okay.
It's the other Starfleet ship that got pulled in
Okay.
by the array.
Yep.
But anyway, they went a different direction. So Janeway was all about sticking to the Prime Directive and holding true to their Starfleet values, whereas the Equinox captain said, "Screw this! We're going to get home however we got to, and we're going to, kidnap aliens and use them for energy to power our ship, and let the consequences be damned." And I was like, "Yeah!
We're getting home!
We're getting home! None of this 75-year thing. Screw that! I got kids. I'm going home."
So I guess the last thing that I have is, do you have any upcoming projects or things that people should be looking out for? Where can we find you?
Well, first, people can find my art on ericwilkersonart.com, and you can follow me on Instagram, Eric Wilkerson Art. I am currently working on stuff. I'm trying to put together personal projects to develop my own IP, intellectual property, around focusing on aliens and stuff. So it's slow going because I'm juggling client work and things. But recently I've been doing a lot of casino work. So if you're a hardcore gambler or just have an addiction problem or something, and you're just happen to find yourself anywhere in a casino worldwide, you'll see my stuff. But I don't put my name on it. So.
Right, but it pays the bills.
It pays. So.
I know how that goes. Well, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with us.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Hi, this is Jenny Usellis-Mackay with the GNT Show, and I'm reporting in from Capricon 36, and I am with our guest of honor, May the Belly Dancer. I'm so excited. May she specializes in tribal fusion. She's a tribal fusion belly dancer, performance artist, producer, and teacher in Chicago, and she has been producing a tribal and tribal fusion belly dance event called The Glint, and she's the director of the troops The Black Silk Road and Down Hips Down. So I'm very excited to talk to her. I enjoy the burlesque and belly dance world. I have some friends who do Rax Geeks, so I'm like, yay! So tell us about The Glint. Where did The Glint come about? What is The Glint? And
I started out in folk dance in general at 7.
Okay.
So, and as I worked my way up into belly dance at 13, all of my teachers were still the old school ladies from the 70s, and I thought they were so old. I was like, oh my God, you're like in your 30s and 40s. It's me now. And they wouldn't let you dance on your own until you could do a 15-minute set. They wanted you to be a well-rounded dancer before they would let you loose. And when I moved to Chicago, I found that there were a lot of people who did not grow up that way. Sure. So there was lots of I can do 3 things, watch! And you're just like, ugh, who let you loose? And so The Glint was born from my idea that dance should have a beginning, middle, and end.
Sure.
Whatever that means, if it's a story you're telling or a emotion you're going through, but basically getting a point across that's not like, what just happened? Right. I don't know. Was that entertainment? I'm not sure. So I just shook my fist in the air a lot and I said, I'm going to do my own show. It's going to be the best. and so The Glint was born, and now it is a long-form dance performance. So all acts are 8 to 16 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So people really do have the time to bring people on a story or on this, road they're traveling, picking them up, running them around, and dropping them off. And you could still leave people wondering what happens next. That's fine, but it has to be intentional. So it's this intentional storytelling. And, and the way it is in Chicago, or the Midwest for that matter, is that, it's 4 minutes set up. You have 4 minutes to dance. Go dance. Okay, it's over.
And you can't really get a lot out of that.
No, you can't. I mean, you can go up there and be like, I'm pretty. I have boobs. Costume. Yes, exactly.
I sparkle.
So that's where the glint comes from.
That's awesome. And is there an upcoming performance? I know you just had one in January.
Yeah, the glint's every 2 months. Our next glint is March 19th at the Orphanage. And the glint is now a theme show starting in 2015. So the March show's theme is steampunk.
Ooh.
So it should be really fun. Me and one of my students, we have a little duet called Eris, and we're doing a snake oil salesman act.
Nice.
That has a lot of twists.
That's so fun. Oh my goodness. Down Hips Down. Mm-hmm. So you have two other dance troupes that you're the director of. What is Down Hips Down?
So Down Hips Down is, I guess you'd call it my second big troupe in the city. They are they're where mayhem happens. my first troupe, Black Silk Road, was a gothic belly dance troupe, and their only goal in life was to scare babies and steal children and wear lots of black and figure out how to wear black in different layers so you could see it all. But Down Hips Down, those gals have let me run amok. We're basically, anytime we start a new choreography, it starts out, now just hear me out on this. The last piece they did in the January show, which was 12 Signs of the Zodiac theme.
Oh, okay.
And they were Leo. And so they were the kittens that found their courage. So their whole routine was them literally being a scared clump of kittens, and they go on quests through dance, and they have this where you can see them going up and down mountains, quote unquote, and having battles, and in the end they basically get knighted, and they have these hoods that have all this lion mane on it, and then in the end they're like, yay, we're big kitties now and we have courage. So they let me do these things to them and tell ridiculous stories, and they're always game. Since 2008, they've always been game.
That's awesome, though. And you need those people in your life.
Absolutely.
And you need that in your life. I feel like everybody needs that kind of a moment to be free and to just say, it's either going to work or it's not going to work. Here we go.
Especially as adult women.
Yeah.
It's, if you, let's say you danced as a kid and you liked it and you outgrew it, or like me, my mom was very afraid of me getting an eating disorder because we're chunky people. We're chunky. I'm Hispanic and Filipino and Irish, and we're all fat. And I wanted to be a ballerina so bad, from 2.
Right.
And she's like, how about we put you in folk dance? And they don't care if you're a fat girl.
Right.
As long as you're in formation. And as an adult, if you want to dance, it feels weird to go into hip hop, because you're probably the oldest person there. And going into ballet as an adult, it's not made for an adult body. It's made for someone who has been destroyed to the point that maybe you could do it into your 20s. There's just not a lot of things that you can, as an adult woman, go into and feel comfortable. Belly dance, you step into the class, and it feels right for a lot of people, and you're very much forced to deal with your body as it's happening, you know? Like, I don't make people expose their stomachs if they don't want to. They can wear like these like cover-ups and like various whatever they want to over their body, but eventually at some point they have to be like, okay,
I'm not getting this undulation. Like,
or even just like when I jiggle my hips, it doesn't stop there. It keeps going up to my tummy and my boobies and my arm jiggle, and to be okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, and to grow to be okay with that. And you know, we've had times in class where people just start crying, and I have no idea why. I'm like, what did I do? I'm so sorry. And they're just like, oh, this is fun.
I did take some belly dance at one point, and it really is like it's an experience. I almost liken that experience to a couple years ago. My friend has a figure drawing class. Or a figure drawing group, and they like to get cosplay and burlesque folks in there because of the costumes and stuff like that, but they're still generally mostly nude. And I posed in like my full Klingon makeup, and it was terrifying. And I was not comfortable, but I'm so glad I did it. And that's how I feel about my belly dance experience too. Like, it's a very freeing thing to just live in your body. And we don't, as women, we just don't live in our bodies often enough. Like, and just love what we've got, regardless of what we've got at any given moment. So I think that's beautiful. You have this great thing that you've mentioned. I think it was in your bio about performing outs, and like that's sort of your style. And I have I have a background in theater, so I think I understand kind of a little bit about where you're going with that. What is that to you? Like, what is that?
Well, like people who have gotten into belly dance since there was YouTube, or since really like it was easier to get DVDs of things. Themselves may not be close to belly dance community or nor know a variety of belly dancers. Maybe their teacher, maybe a few of their classmates, and they see these videos, these highly edited videos of people who are professional dancers who like this is their job,
right? And
they just zoom in on these like minute movements, and every once in a while you get a face shot, you know, and that's playing to a camera.
Right.
But when you're dancing in real life with real people, they have to be able to see what you're doing past 5 feet,
right?
Past 10 feet, past however many feet. And so if you just out as in theater or as singing, if you can't project, it doesn't matter how lovely your talent is if people in the back can't tell what's going on, you know? And like when I first started in Chicago 10 years ago, I had this I developed this dumb habit, and I guess reputation is that I wasn't used to people being so far away, because I had danced in restaurants, at friend fairs, at various events where I was never more than an arm's distance from people. And so, you know, now I was dancing in like school auditoriums, you know, like the cafeteria / auditorium, and I would get so close to the edge of the stage that I would curl my toes over the edge.
Wow.
And someone mentioned it once. She was like, "You were white knuckling that stage," and I was like, "I don't understand. My hands, I was not touching that stage in any way." She's like, "You were on the edge, and I saw your toes were white." I'm like, "They're probably cold, but I guess if you saw them and they were that close to the stage, maybe I would just try to get close to you."
Right.
So I don't know. I feel like, again, like you have to take people on this little journey. It's a little fantasy, you know, like in real life, I'm a Medicare auditor.
Yeah.
You know, it's not fun, not sexy in any way, shape, or form. I mean, you wouldn't be doing an interview with me if I was like, tell me about Medicare auditing. You know, you want them to believe that you are this dancer, that you are this whatever it is that you're portraying yourself, you know? Like, if you think of like performers that stick in your mind and last over time, you think like Madonna and people who can constantly recreate themselves, but it's not really recreation. It's still the same person. They're just telling you different stories.
Right.
We all have many, many, many stories, And if you're just like this like one trick pony, doesn't matter how good you are, you will become not so much passé, but just like, I know you, I know what you're gonna do. I can see that next time I have to go get dinner.
Well, and as a performer, that's not very edifying either.
No.
Yeah, I mean, eventually you become so rote yourself.
It does.
And you stagnate as a person, I think.
Definitely. So. Like, I'm a sex goddess can only get you so far,
Right.
I also do burlesque, and same thing with that. You could be the hottest gal out there, but if you are a one-trick pony, not that you won't get anywhere,
right? But
that you want to capture people's interest. We are ADD. We only so what are you gonna do for me now?
Right.
So I guess of that.
All right, where are we at for 5 minutes or so? I don't know. I'll just edit this out. Yeah. Oh, we got 7 minutes. We're cool. Okay. So panels this weekend. Are you participating in panels? I know you have a performance.
Yeah. Today, 2:30. I hope. I'm doing a storytelling through dance.
Oh, cool.
Panel. I have to admit, I've never done a panel in my life. I have no idea what I'm up against. Not a clue. Not a stinking clue.
It's a lot like this.
Okay. Because I was like, do I have props? I don't think I brought enough props. do I get a PowerPoint presentation? Where's my projector? What do I do?
Yeah.
And so...
Just a bigger room.
Yeah. and basically, we forget that there was a time before written language, and there is oral storytelling, but a lot of folk dances are stories, as simple as a dance could be the girls going to fetch water from the well. And what that means. Does that mean, it usually has to do with their youth, they're unmarried, they're giggly, they're whatever, but also the purity of the water giving life.
Right.
It goes a lot more than you would assume, but some of these folk dances are hundreds, if not thousands of years old.
Right.
So, and again, back to my mother, because it's always about your mother, and just let's do folk dance.
Right.
It would be so great for you. And it really was. It really, really was, because it wasn't about 1, 2, 3, where are you on beat 6? It's are you getting across that, in hula dance especially, it's about the travels of these people who went over great waters to find this land where they stayed. And it's just tourist fodder, but at the same time, if you bothered to pay attention, you're like, oh,
it's really saying.
There's a really deep story behind this.
There's a history.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end with the G&T show's Lipton questions. They basically take the inside the actor's studio questions and they Star Trek-ify them.
Yes.
So we'll just go through a few of them that are some of my personal favorites from that. What is your favorite Trek series?
I really have to say Deep Space Nine, but because I'm watching Next Generation all over again with my wife, I have to say Next Generation right now. Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
It's good. I mean, it's good.
It's tough. Oh, conflict.
If you could be any species in Trek except human, which would you be?
Oh, I would have to be a Betazoid.
Amy is over in the back.
I would have to be.
Any chance I'd get to hang out with Luxana Troy, I would be all over.
Oh my gosh!
Yes, she's a nut. This was one that I changed. Is there a genre or style of dance that you haven't tackled yet but would love to try?
That's a toughie. I know. Japanese court dance.
Ooh.
Japanese court dance. One of my friends is just a super master. Danielle Meyer. Her name's Danielle Meyer. And she got me started, and I ran away screaming. But basically, it's a folk dance based on the storytelling of the gods, and it's very related to not related, but very much like Nordic dogs, where they're pretty wild. They're always just like poking at you. And so the neat thing about the dance is that everybody who dances the dance is crooked. Like no one is standing 90 degrees to the ground, because the gods are so perfect that to us they appear to be on a different plane.
Wow.
So whenever they show themselves to us, they're just slightly askew. That's the only hint, because they look like people. So in the dance, their entire time they're leaning, and it's really disorienting. And what they used to do, unfortunately, I guess the Russian gymnastics mills, they start them really young, and they would break their fingers. And so whenever they flayed their fingers out, it would just double joint back, just so you were extra weird and on a different plane. They don't do that anymore. They also used to feed people heroin when they performed, so their eyes were extra buggy.
Wow.
But that's been illegal since 1971. Well, technically.
That's crazy. I'm just going to end this with, do you have any upcoming projects we should be looking for, and how do we find you? And what you're doing?
Well, the Glint's all year.
Okay.
January, March, May. We skip the hot months because our venue is not air conditioned. And then August and October, I'm pregnant. So
congratulations.
Yay! So the August show, which is not going to be run by me, it's going to be run by a group called Core Demo. There is a podcast called The Mighty Inc.
Okay.
And they are a nerdcast, and they created Core Demo as a American Cancer Society fundraiser, and so I collaborate with them every August and to raise money. And they Matthew Peters, I think that's your name in the thing. I don't know if you have a fake name. I'm sorry, it's Matthew Peters. And he's a master at getting free stuff, and so we have the most ridiculous raffles.
Right.
Just look at this. People oh my god, that's free. And so really the raffle runs it. So it's this belly dance, cancer fundraiser, anti-cancer fundraiser, comic book conglomero, and I'm just actually going to sit back and watch that one, because I will probably have a 1-month-old.
Oh wow!
Then but this year all the shows are themed. It's at maythebellydancer.com. I'm also on Facebook. May the Belly Dancer, and the Glint has its own page, just like the Glint at Facebook. I don't know, you just do a search.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to us. Thank you. This is May the Belly Dancer. We're signing out. Yay! This is Usellis-Mackay, and I am with the G&T Show, reporting in from Capricon 36. I am sitting here with author guest of honor Scott Lynch. Scott is the author of the Gentleman Bastard series, and if you are not familiar, go out and buy the Lies of Lockamora. I did last year when I found out I was going to be doing this interview, and I'm so glad I did. Scott bills himself as a standard issue geek of all trades: history, lit, films, contemporary, and classic maths. I like that. And he collects choose-your-own-adventure novels, which I also love. So thank you so much for joining us.
Oh,
today.
my pleasure. And I apologize. I'm nursing something of a sore throat here. This tea is working wonders, but my voice is not what it should be.
Yeah, I have been there. We have all been there. So, where did I want to start? You are doing panels this year.
She asks me, listeners. She asks.
Right, I know. I'm I wrote my notes all out of order here. So you've already done, I sat in on your panel last night about heists and capers and jobs. And I know you've got some other panels coming up this weekend. What panels are you participating in? And hoping to discuss this weekend?
Well, what we're doing tonight is we're doing a panel called "When the Good Guys Are Bad Guys." which I think will be sort of a variation on a theme carrying on from what we already did. But talking about bent heroes and anti-heroes and slightly crooked heroes and why they're near and dear to our hearts and what they can do that a more ethically or morally straight-edged character can't do. Why that's appealing, why boundary breaking is fascinating. I think we'll have a good time with it.
The panel last night, you guys touched on all kinds of they broke down in the Heist Capers panel last night. You guys kind of broke down the pieces of what makes a good heist and the different kinds of heists and stuff like that. It was really fascinating.
Why am I nodding? I'm nodding audience, I'm nodding into a microphone.
We all do it. You also are doing a panel that I think is really interesting. When the world kind of lost Robin Williams, I felt like that was one of the biggest wake-up calls that everybody has had as far as depression and mental illness. Mm-hmm. I think that one in particular hit people. I mean, we've lost Philip Seymour Hoffman and we lost other people to depression, but I felt like that one really seemed to rock a lot of people. And so I'm really interested in the fact that you're doing this depression and fandom panel. You've been very open about your struggles, and what kinds of things are you looking to discuss in that panel?
Well, the most important thing I think we have to discuss, and the thing we've been talking about around the convention here, is simply the fact of making it, an open conversation, of making it an active conversation, because it's denial and internalization that turns it into something that is actively dangerous and something that is, occasionally deadly. It's the concealment of the issue from yourself and from others. It's the fact that we have some unhealthy attitudes as individuals and as a society about whether or not this is an illness and whether or not you should share it with others. I mean, there's that attitude going back to the roots of our various cultures. Don't make trouble for other people. Don't share your internal problems. Be stoic. I come from the Midwestern sort of Lutheran tradition where if you have a problem, you just shut up about it for 50 years.
Right.
And
it's like that sort of American bravado. We just want to put on a brave face.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
it's pretend everything is okay and everything will be really okay, even if you're really miserable. And that's how people end up, internalizing misery and not confronting it and, either spending decades of their lives miserable or eventually harming themselves. And it's not like simply talking about it makes it go away, but it certainly makes it relatively easier to deal with. It doesn't magically go away. I mean, various forms of depression, various forms of anxiety attacks, they've always been with us, and they've always taken a very significant toll. Robin Williams is just the tip of an iceberg that goes all the way back. I mean, you can't swing an Oxford English dictionary without in a room full of dead authors without hitting a depressive, without hitting someone who had various issues. I mean, it's not that these illnesses are not a modern invention. These illnesses are not a modern discovery. Right. It's just the terminology and the treatment that are relatively modern innovations. This crap has always been with us, and it has always claimed victims. It's just that only in relatively recent times have we managed to put a name to what this stuff is and categorize what it does and how it can be dealt with.
Right. Well, and it's good that people are opening up, and not only people are opening up, the people with a platform are opening up, and that I think is such a huge thing. So thank you for that, and everyone who does that, because it's important. It is important.
It's also, it's self-defense after a fashion. I mean, it was. Sure. It was literally one interview back in December 2010. I was in London doing an audio interview for my publishers, and I'd been kind of out of it for a couple of years, dealing with, as it turned out, depression and divorce. And the guy asked me straight up, "So where have you been? What's been going on for a couple of years?" And it was like confronting the question that nakedly at that point. I realized that either I could talk about it and be open about it, or I would be dodging this stupid question for like the next 30 years.
Right.
And making excuses for it. And frankly, just being open about it at that point seemed like the easiest path.
Yeah.
And I think that was the right decision. I mean, there is such a thing as healthy privacy. There is such a thing as not sharing too much of yourself with I mean, it's my problems are not the world's issues, but there's a difference between, look, you don't need to know my medical bills and you don't need to read my doctor's reports, and let me be honest about what I deal with and what I think a lot of other people deal with.
Right. You've written a couple of lovely takedowns.
People provide the material.
They really do. But you have been quite a champion for inclusivity and diversity, and in your books and in. I read. I think was it last year with the piece that you wrote about the sad puppies and the nomination.
Oh, the sad puppy. You know, Patrick Nielsen Hayden conspires against all of science fiction. I mean, it's incredibly frustrating. I mean, I wrote that piece largely because a crazy dude, and I am a crazy dude, but this guy's nuts. Literally made up the story that Patrick Nielsen Hayden, a senior editor at Tor Books, has been quote-unquote masterminding the quote-unquote corruption of the Hugo Awards for 20 years. And John C. Wright, I'll name names here because, I certainly did so in my written piece, picked this up and ran with it. And this is a complete nonsensical fabrication. This is absolute bullshit. There's nothing there. This is a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory that was just conjured out of nothing, and it's not a difference of opinion. I mean, it's not like, well, you like books that I don't like. I mean, I have friends of all political stripes. I read the work of authors of all political stripes. I don't vet my book collection based on whether the writer hews to my politics or not. I'd have a very small book collection if I did that. I read friggin' Niven and Pornell and David Weber, for crying out loud. I read across the entire human spectrum. It's not actually a disagreement about politics. It's that there's a tiny group of people who are just making up absolute batshit nonsense fabrication about a guy who happens to be a friend of mine, and parading it around online as though it were gospel truth. And there are other people picking it up, saying, "Oh well, Patrick Nielsen Hayden has been attempting to suborn the Hugo Awards for 20 years." I broke down the numbers. If Patrick has been trying to suborn the Hugo Awards for 20 years, he's doing a pretty crap job of it. The other thing is, Patrick works for Tor Books. I love Tor Books. God bless them, but it's just not happening, folks. I mean, there's no pool of money. There's no pool of resources. There's no secret agency that does this stuff. The Hugo Awards are a pretty unique voting demographic in that a large number of the available votes every year, the voting pool shifts geographically. Okay. So not only is it a rather self-selecting pool, because there's a certain segment of fandom that really cares about Worldcons and about the Hugos in general, but the eligibility shifts on a year-by-year basis. And depending on where the Worldcon moves to, that means there can be a very significant change in the pool of votes, because not everyone can follow it year by year and buy supporting memberships. Right. So when the voting pool flips from, say, Japan in one year to Canada the next, or geographic flips of equal magnitude, you're going to be introducing significant variations into this pool. The notion that any one or two people could secretly be controlling this, especially when you have a different group of people administering it every single year, again, drawn from disparate geographic locales in different geographic locations, it just doesn't make any damn sense. Right. I mean, so that's why I snapped in that respect, because it's like, differences of political opinion are differences of political opinion. Differences of philosophical opinion are also another thing entirely. To just flat out allege that
one dude.
Yeah, the whole books I don't like aren't winning awards, therefore conspiracy, that is infantile thinking. You must, as an adult, learn to accept that sometimes awards don't go to great books. I also said this in my rant, that, as far as I'm concerned, I think the exact phrasing I used was talent mausoleums. Occasionally, Hugo Awards go to some really bad books. They certainly have in recent history. They certainly have in deep history.
Well, it's the same thing happening in the Oscars too. I mean,
exactly.
Just like, why did Titanic win an Oscar?
Why did Titanic win an Oscar? Why did Shakespeare in Love win an Oscar? It's half of a brilliant film, the other half is brilliant. But this every single year there's going to be disputes, there's going to be arguments. There is no objective measurement for this sort of artistic quality or for the taste of the voting public. Right. These are self-selecting, self-interested popularity contests, and they can only be judged and gamed to a certain degree. And you kind of have to grow up and accept that not every party can be about you, and that the fact that major awards fail to uphold your individual tastes is very rarely an indication that the world is broken and everything needs to be cast down in flames. I mean, if you can't accept that, you're not a goddamn adult. Sorry to put it so bluntly, but an awful lot of stuff that I've wanted to win awards has not won awards. I myself have been up for major awards. I've never won one. There are a number of brilliantly successful fantasy and science fiction writers who've had decades-long careers, who've spent multiple times on the New York Times bestseller list, who've never come anywhere near a Hugo Award. That is the way the universe works. It's unfortunate, but that's just how it is.
Right. So I am going to take this on a completely different journey, and we're going to get to the G&T show Lipton questions.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! The G&T show actually, a lot of them do some writing and stuff like that. So some of these questions are actually geared towards writers. So I'm excited because I'll actually get to ask.
Yeah, I get a chance to be relevant.
And some of them are not. So the first question: what's your favorite Trek series?
Oh man, you got to hit me with a. Oh, okay. Complicated answer. Okay, when I was growing up, I was born in '78. So Next Gen was the new shiny when I was growing up, and I was watching it when it was also a new experiment. First run syndication. So I was right. watching it as it was coming out, and that same channel that was showing Star Trek: The Next Generation in St. Paul, Minneapolis in the mid '80s had also been showing the original series in reruns.
Oh, nice.
So
okay.
I'd gotten into both of them, and my dad had also taken me to see Star Trek 4, and he took me to see Star Trek 6, and he was kind of a loosely interested Trekkie. I mean, he liked him, he liked the show, and he'd grown up with the original series, so that was what, he taught me, Kirk and Bones and Spock. I'm super fond of the original series. Next Gen was formative on me, and I think the middle 5 seasons of Deep Space Nine are really, really brilliant. I think it was a heck of an achievement. So I'm kind of an agnostic over those 3 things, but if I had to pick a favorite character, I would definitely say that Leonard McCoy is my homeboy.
Nice. If you could be any species in the Trek universe besides human, what would you be?
Oh, I think, who wouldn't want to be a Vulcan? The long lifespan, superior physical strength, and the thing is that logic is opt-in. You don't actually have to follow the path of logic. It's simply a sort of life maintenance tool that they use. And essentially, if you an illogical or a not strictly logical Vulcan is a Romulan. Right. And other than the slight temptation toward autocratic power games, that's not entirely too awful.
Right.
I mean, the other thing you could say is, hey, Q, but.
Right.
But that's like if a genie, the old question, if a genie offers you a superpower, what superpower do you take? I want Superman's superpower.
Right.
That's like nebulously claiming 100 things under the auspice of one thing.
Right.
So let's say Vulcan.
Vulcan. I like it. If you were given the opportunity to write an open-ended series based on one character in Trek, who would it be?
Oh my God!
Yeah, these are intense. I got these sent to me like yesterday, and I was
one existing character in Trek?
Yeah.
Okay, it's been done a couple of times. There's some wonderful stuff from some of the novels. I'm thinking particularly of the novels from the 80s and the 90s where the Enterprise crew actually visits the Romulan homeworld, and Dr. McCoy filibusters the Romulan Senate. by talking to them about his mint julep recipes.
Nice.
I could not resist the temptation. I would totally love to write in-depth Bones McCoy stories. Dr. McCoy faces medical crisis, Dr. McCoy in a courtroom drama. I would just eat that up. You wouldn't even have to pay me much. I would just have way too much fun with that.
What authors' books do you run out to get when they're released?
Well, I was a lifelong fan. The series is concluded now, and I don't know what he's going to do next. The books that made me a fantasist, the books that were my most formative fantasy experience, were Raymond E. Feist's Midkenia books, the Rift War Saga, and all the books that came thereafter. And they've been variable in quality over the years, but I think the stuff he was doing back in the 80s and 90s, and the stuff that he wrote, especially in conjunction with Janny Wirtz, a trilogy called the Empire Trilogy, really, really good stuff, really solid. Those used to be must reads for me, but the whole Midkenia series came to a conclusion just a couple of years ago after roughly 30 books.
Wow. I think my husband has them all.
I'm a gigantic fan of Matthew Woodring Stover, the author of Heroes Die, Blade of Tyshel, the Acts of Cain sequence, and a number of Star Wars tie-ins. Some of the best Star Wars tie-ins ever written. Matt is an under-heralded genius, and he's kind of the closest thing I have to a mentor in terms of writing. I mean, a guy that I talked to and emulated actively when I was first trying to sell my novels. So anything from him I will run out and snap up. Anything from Tim Powers. Nearly anything from Margaret Atwood. Anything from Elizabeth Bear, of course, but I'm going to marry her, so it's very easy for me to be on the inside there. I'm a tremendous. This is nepotistic, but I'm a big fan of anything Joe Abercrombie does, and sadly he's no longer with us. But Jack Vance wrote so much that. Looking for old Jack Vance stuff, there's so much of it that it's like looking for new stuff. There's always going to be something that's new to me.
You didn't know
so
that.
he's my new old writer. I'm going to be hunting his stuff for decades to come, I'm sure.
Is there a genre you haven't written or published yet, but would love to try?
Espionage. Well, I mean, it's coming up. There's going to be, there's a sort of a shifting tone or theme to each of the Bastard books, and we're definitely going to be entering into the world of espionage with Book 5. But I mean, I'm a big John le Carre, Sandbaggers, Len Dayton fan. So I really enjoy that sort of thing. I would dearly love to do. I mean, hell, Sandbaggers in space would also be one of my dream opportunities. I'm also in recent years, as sort of guilty pleasure popcorn reading, I devoured the entire Honor Harrington sequence by David Weber. I really loved techno thrillers when I was a kid. Tom Clancy, Larry Bonda, etc. Red Storm Rising is one of my favorite go-to reads of all time. I think it's probably the single best piece of the techno thriller genre from the 80s and the 90s. When David Weber is writing well, he delivers probably the best techno thriller type stuff since the heyday of Tom Clancy and Larry Bond. I just wish he would do it more often. I don't mean to sound mean. I'm not super satisfied with the way the Honor Harrington series has developed. But On Basilisk Station is a brilliant book that stands on its own very well. A very pleasant surprise. One of the most harrowing battle sequences in all of science fiction history. I could recommend that to almost anybody.
My to-read pile just escalated in the last 5 minutes. Just
I would also dearly love to step into the big old nuts and boltsy space opera sandbox and write something there. In my copious spare time, in addition to the other 90 books I'm old. But things may happen in that regard.
What's the name of your starship? The USS?
That's whenever I play a game like Escape Velocity or something where you have to name. I'm a sucker for space trading games where you saunter all over the place and trade space plumbing parts for uranium in one port and ship them someplace else and bounty hunt on the side. Typically, I name my ships. I can't explain why I do this, though there's a lengthy backstory. Typically, my first ship will be called the Star Tomato.
Okay.
And then as I upgrade, it'll be Star Tomato 2, Star Tomato 3, Star Tomato 4, and then as things go on, almost invariably I will name a ship Eternal Sun, which is a cheat code from the old Sega Genesis Doom game.
Do you have a favorite adjective?
Adjective?
And it was like, or do you have one that you overuse?
Overuse I can give you. I mean, you can certainly look at my first novel in particular is kind of a panoply of literary sins and habits that I worked very hard to shake.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's definitely an awful lot of adjective overuse. Just that. He was very scary. He came into the room very quickly. He was quite big, etc., etc. Just these words that don't actually add anything to the paragraph, that don't actually add any meaning. It was a heavy wagon. It was a small pen. He had a heavy sword. But it doesn't tell you, and if it's not directly relevant, to like the actual information being imparted, it's just noise. I've worked very, very hard to try and weed these out of my work over the last couple of years. So I don't have a favorite, but I guarantee they've been present in my work.
Is there anything that you absolutely hate? I guess it would probably be very or something like that. Is there like one of those, like the word you can't stand?
A word I can't stand. Oh, actually, probably almost. Almost is a weasel coward word that that leaks in from our speech patterns into our writing. He was almost scared. He was almost enjoying it. Almost is a bullshit word. You don't need it there unless it is genuinely almost. We use it to hedge our bets. We use it to be imprecise.
Yeah.
And we do it without realizing it. Almost like began. He began to walk across the room. He began to write. If you use a word like began, you should really, 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 really mean it should have chronological importance. It should not just be a substitute. It's not a synonym for he walked across the room. I mean, the fact that he's only beginning the process, or the fact that she is only beginning to write, should be of essence to what you're trying to communicate, and it should not be reflexive. So sorry to sound. I'm sorry.
No.
For the last couple of years, I've been given the chance to teach and lecture at the Viable Paradise Writing Workshop on Martha's Vineyard, and I've been forced in doing so to confront and analyze and be able to, when people ask questions, I have to be able to give answers that are more than just nebulous. Well, it depends. Right. So I've refined an awful lot of my thoughts on my own work and on paragraph and sentence structure in general. So I'm ready to deploy this stuff and bore you to death.
Well, that's good, because I know that like Terry and Nick are going to love this.
Yeah, that sort of thing is really, really important. I mean, it used to come from, it used to show up in my work as well. Hopefully less these days because I'm a little more careful about it. But, our relatively sloppy speech patterns leak into our writing, whether we realize it or not. I mean, we write as we speak.
Right.
I've often commented that, I'm from Minnesota. So I say an awful lot of pleases and thank yous. I don't mean to.
Cute.
Yes, exactly. I don't mean to imply that we are nicer or better people at our hearts. But there's a certain form of Minnesota politeness. There's a certain way I was raised.
Yep.
Even when I'm really angry, I tend to say please and thank you.
I lived there for 8 years.
Yeah. So what I noticed is that even when I was attempting to write bad guy dialect, even when I'd have a deadly assassin, she'd walk into the room and threaten them and threaten them and threaten them, or a crime boss who would say, I'm going to cut your balls off. I was putting, and because if I was an evil overlord, Even if I was threatening people with life and death every day, I'd still be polite about it. Take care of Mr. Bond, please. I mean, I'd be nice to my minions
Right.
on general principles. But I discovered that this was leaking into my work, that all of my alleged antagonists and hard cases were saying please and thank you and being very Minnesotan to one another, and not in an ironic Coen Brothers sort of sense that was coming. It was just undermining the intended menace. So I had to scrub my own patterns of speech and thinking and basically make people a little more rude. You yourself leak into your work whether you realize it or not. And part of the editing process, part of maturing as an analyst and an editor as well as a writer, is recognizing that overlay of your own habits on the voice that you're trying to impart in your own work. And you've got to develop the ability to divorce yourself from those words just enough to spot the stuff that doesn't belong, the stuff that is just a natural residue of your own speech and behavior patterns.
Oh, this is the tough question.
Oh, good.
If you were given the green light to kill a major Star Trek canon character, who would you kill?
Kill?
Yeah.
Boy, who don't I like?
See, when I answered this question the first time, you wouldn't like me.
Tell me you weren't going to kill Dr. McCoy.
I would.
Why on earth would anyone do that?
I felt like when we talked it, like when we kind of all talked it out, I'm like, he's kind of the glue in a lot of ways to there's that trio between him and Kirk and Spock,
you want to kill him to set up interesting story and character resonance.
I feel like that would be such a blow and would come as such a shock that it would really completely redefine those relatitions.
Okay.
That was that was me, but I'm not a writer and I'm not like a... That was, yeah. I'm like, and they were like, oh.
I've never actually thought about it in terms of killing anybody.
Yeah, that was when they asked that question. I'm like, that's a terrible question. Nobody should die.
Actually, I think if you killed Neelix on Voyager, no one would really miss. I'm sorry, I got feelings about that.
No, I kind of hear where you're going with that, though. I like Ethan Phillips.
There's nothing wrong with Ethan Phillips.
But Neelix he's tough.
Yes. The prototypical Jar Jar Binks of the Star Trek universe.
Ooh. I guess that leaves us with the final. Where can people find you? I know you're revamping your website right now. What?
Well, okay, the thing is,
he didn't answer the question. I know he did. I let him dodge.
I'm going to dodge the question because I have not actually thought about it. It's the sort of thing that that I would actually need to dwell upon before I drop the anvil.
I expect a tweet. That's no.
No, it's okay. The other thing is that Star Trek, with all of its various alternate universes and its Q interference and its time portals and so on and so forth, has frequently explored the question of what would happen in a world where this guy didn't exist or this person was removed. Or I mean, we some of the Next Gen crew members even got to see their own funerals.
Right.
So I don't feel a burning urge to really make that subtraction for the sake of exploring character further. So yeah, I will take an honorable dodge on that question.
I will let you. So, upcoming projects that we should be looking for.
Okay. Yes. The perpetual revamp of my website is still ongoing, and I hope that we'll have some very new stuff up very soon. Because when is this podcast eventually going to go live?
Probably in the next week or two.
The next week. Okay. Well, it's no secret that The Thorn of Emberlane is coming out, but we are going to have a big announcement soonish.
Okay.
A big formal announcement with a date and everything. And when that happens, we are going to, my website will get revamped a little bit, and the stuff that's been there since 2007 will get cleaned up because I don't want to be that guy. I mean, that person who's like, the homepage of author such and such, and like the first journal entry there will be like September 2nd, 2009, right. And the first entry will be like, so I vow to update more frequently, because they're all over the place, and I was that guy for quite a while. Actually, if you my journal entry for like 6 or 7 years was, hey, I'm not going to be that guy. So it gets very meta. There's going to be that. I've got a couple short stories that are going to be coming out in various venues. I've got one side project that I totally can't talk about that is not even writing related, but will become a thing that we can talk about in public this year. And then there's a non-Lamora novel which may be coming out. We may be talking about it later this year. We may be able to be public about it. There's a couple Lamora novellas that are going to be coming from Subterranean Press that have also been a million years in gestation. They're also definitely going to be in the damn pipe. This is going to be one of those years where I hope we clean up some of the mess and get some things back on track. I've been engaged in a more intensive program of therapy for the past 7 months or so, specifically relating to my anxiety issues, because it's the anxiety issues that are largely holding me back from getting this stuff out in public. My productivity is back where I would like it to be. Despite the fact that I have a sore throat and I'm running myself ragged, seeking a mortgage at the moment, my overall health and productivity is actually really good. It's just the anxiety about showing my work to other people that is essentially crippling my output. But there's been decided progress in the last couple of months that I think portend really good things for the future, because that's the block. That's all it is.
Right. Awesome.
So I think it's going to be a good year.
Looking forward to it. Scott, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I hope any of that was coherent.
Oh, it'll be great.
It's before noon. I'm still moderately sick, and I'm not entirely caffeinated, so if that was even English, that's quite an achievement.
Well, it's Capricon, so we were at a party already on Thursday night, then stayed up too late. So that's the best. Yeah, we're just sort of rolling around, but so thank you again. Thank you for sitting down.
Oh, my pleasure.
This is Scott Lynch, the author of the Gentleman Bastard series. Go out, grab the first book if you've never read it, The Lies of Loch Lamora. The fourth book, The Thorn of Emberlane, coming soon. Announcement coming soon, and we're signing out from Capricon today.
Have a good one.
Music for the GNT show is provided by 5 Year Mission, Enterprise Blues Band, Warp 11, Andrew Allen, and Greth Thor. The GNT show is a BLB production.
Move ahead, walk back to 10. Put a mini skirt on my yo man. Represent the human race. And we make space a happy place. To fully go where no man's gone before. I think I sang that line once before, but I'm not too sure. We'll be so happy, can't you see? A zero-G community. Gonna travel to new worlds. Beam on down and meet some green girls. Gonna see what we can see. A fancy-free galaxy. To fully go where no man's gone before. I think I sang that line once before, but I'm not too sure. We'll be so happy, can't you see? A zero-G community. Come and take a tour with me. There'll be no cons or Kobe.